Good morning. I am in Loveland, Colorado. Picked this load up yesterday in St. Joseph, Missouri. I'm still trying to get used to the whole lower 48 hours of service, and you have to be careful when you start because your 14-hour clock starts ticking and doesn't stop. Well, unless you can spend 2 hours in a sleeper, I guess that'll stop it. But the whole thing's ridiculous. And that's one of the things I wanted to make a video on. That is ridiculous. And I've talked about this before. When you go off duty, you should be off duty. And if you look at Canada or you look at Alaska, when you go off duty, you're off duty. Those hours that you had left over, if you have any left over, stay there until your 10-hour break is complete, and then of course you get your driving everything back. This is the reason why drivers are rushing around down here, because once their clock starts, that's it. It starts. They got to get their driving in. And if you get held up somewhere, like if you get held up here too long, getting unloaded or getting loaded, it starts eating into your driving time. And a lot of people say, well, you can go in a sleeper for 2 hours and whatever. Okay, number one, what if you're only there an hour and 45 minutes? You got to show some kind of loading or unloading time. You got to show something. And you can't just show 5 minutes to the cop. Hey, yeah, they unloaded me in 5 minutes. 5 minutes? Really, driver? Unless you had like one pallet, and as soon as you got there, they threw you in the door and pulled it off real fast. Probably not. What if you're in a day cab? When I was hauling crude oil, we had to abide by that. And a lot of times I had to stop for the day, not because I was out of driving time because I drove 11 hours, but because my 14-hour clock didn't stop, right? And I wasn't anywhere long enough to show 2 hours in the sleeper berth. I may be 45 minutes here, an hour there, an hour and a half here, loading crude, unloading the crude, running lease roads, at 30, 35 mile an hour, for 20 miles sometimes. So yeah, I could get one more load in that day if it weren't for my 14-hour clock not stopping. So the whole 14-hour clock not stopping thing needs to be gone, because it is not about safety. It does nothing for safety. Absolutely nothing. In fact, I would argue it makes things worse because the drivers have to rush around. Another thing it hurts, when I was going to St. Joseph yesterday, they had the old Ferris truck stop there on I-29. A lot of you old guys like me remember the Ferris. Well, not that old. I mean, it hadn't been that long it's been closed. It's closed. One of the few remaining independent truck stops left in America. It's closed. It's a Pilot now. Pilot, no surprise, right? Pilot loves to tear down independent truck stops and put up a Pilot and put up a McDonald's or whatever, and that's what Pilot does. Pilot has torn down God knows how many independent truck stops. I mean, just a buttload of them over the years. That's their thing, But I got to thinking, who has time in the middle of their shift to stop and eat a meal in a restaurant? Your 14-hour clock doesn't stop. So how do you have time? You don't have time. The only time you have time is maybe before you start your shift or when you go off duty at the end of your shift. It's the only time you really have time to do it. I can remember back in the day, back in the paper log days, or back before they changed hours of service even, if I was coming toward a major city, say 4:35 in the afternoon, I would stop, usually a truck stop, on the edge of town, stop, eat something, maybe take a nap. I get up about 6, and then I take off through town after the traffic started to die down. That's safety. That's safe. It's a lot safer than, being in the middle of rush hour traffic in a major city. So there's so many regulations out there is what I'm trying to say, I guess. There's so many regulations out there that are supposed to be about safety that aren't. 30-minute break, that's another one. All the 30-minute break has done is clog up the fuel islands. Or what it does for me, if I'm driving overnight, and with this job you do a lot of overnight driving, if I stop, take a 30-minute break at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know what I do? I get sleepy. I've pulled over for 30 minutes, I've gotten sleepy. And it's a waste of time. If I want to stop for 30 minutes, I'll stop for 30 minutes. If I want to stop for 20 minutes, I'll stop for 20 minutes. If I don't want to stop, I shouldn't be forced to stop. Again, I'm a grown adult. I don't need you to tell me to stop and take a 30-minute break. It's ridiculous. And it needs to be gone. I mean, they did help a little bit by allowing you to be able to do it on duty as well as off duty. Used to be you could only do it off duty. That was mayhem. You know what we would do? We would stop to get fuel, and we would show about a minute fueling, because it's just so ridiculous. But now you got guys sitting on the fuel island because they stop to get fuel, and they're about due for a 30-minute break anyway, and it's just human nature. Well, look, man, I'm going to try to squeeze 30 minutes out of this, I remember I stopped to get fuel in Aurora, Nebraska one time at the Loves, and a CRST truck was pulled up in front of me, and I got fuel. Now, I assumed they were inside. No, she was sitting in her truck, and then she got out as I was going to get my fuel receipt. I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm just grabbing my fuel receipt and I'm leaving. She goes, "Oh, I'm on a 30-minute break, man." I said, "Well, number one, don't do it on the fuel island. Number two, especially don't do it on the fuel island if you're going to pull up where somebody can pull up behind you to get fuel." I said, "I've got someplace to be." So I made her move. And she ended up getting back on the highway and everything. I said, "You don't have to get back on the highway, just go park. It's the middle of the day. There's all kind of truck parking out there." But, I don't know, some people can't park, I guess. Anyway, that's what it breeds. It breeds clogging up the truck stops, the fuel islands, guys getting mad, getting in fights. It does nothing to enhance safety. So we need to get rid of the 30-minute break. So 2 things right there. Let the 14-hour clock stop when you go off duty. You are off duty after all. And number 2, get rid of the 30-minute break. Those 2 things right there would help tremendously. Would help the trucking industry tremendously. It would help get freight delivered on time. It would help slow these guys down a little bit where they don't feel like they have to run. "Oh, my clock's ticking. I got to go. I got to hurry up." I think Secretary Duffy probably would have addressed these issues already were it not for the fact that the whole illegal driver thing popped up with this guy in Florida making the illegal U-turn, and which, don't get me wrong, it needed to be addressed, but it kind of threw that into the forefront to where that's what everybody's concentrating on. Because before that, Duffy said, "Hey, I want to get Washington out of the cab of your truck," which we're all for that, and maybe he will start to address these things. I hope he does. But anyway, those 2 things were really been on my mind. I want to go over a few misconceptions that a lot of younger drivers, especially, not just younger, older drivers. One thing is, I hear this a lot: you can't have a firearm in a commercial vehicle. It's a federal law. It's not a federal law. you can have a firearm in a commercial vehicle. Now, you have to abide by state laws. I live in Texas. We have constitutional carry, which means you don't need a card, you don't need to take a class, or any of that. I do have an LTC, license to carry card. And the reason why I do is because not all states are constitutional carry. See, Oklahoma's constitutional carry, Kansas is constitutional carry, Nebraska's constitutional. No, Nebraska's not. Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas are. So those are two other states close to me that are constitutional carry. Colorado's not. New Mexico's not. So I have to have an LTC if I'm carrying a firearm, which I'm not going to say if I am or not, and I want to carry it into their states. Now, I will say this. When I worked here before, I carried a firearm. Never had a problem. Never had a problem with a cop. If I got pulled on the scale or whatever, and the cop, come up to my truck, first thing I tell him, hey, just want to let you know I got a 9mm strapped to me, or it's in the truck somewhere. Okay, no problem. I had a guy one time, okay, just don't reach for it. I'm like, bro, I'm not even trying to commit suicide by cop, man. Don't worry about that. Most of the time they would just ask me, oh, what kind of gun you got? Oh, what kind of holster? They would just, most of those guys are gun enthusiasts, so they'd ask you questions like that. Never had a problem. Now, we don't go to California. We don't go to New York. We don't go to, another, maybe like Georgia, Tennessee, some of those places where they're a bit more, shall we say, they're not truck friendly. And gun friendly, maybe, but maybe not if you're a truck driver. I stay in the Midwest, Rocky Mountains, and so, it's a bit more gun friendly. So I don't have that problem. But there is no federal law. You have to abide by the state laws. There's also no federal law that says that a truck can't get in the left lane on the multi-lane freeway. That's another thing I hear. It's not true. There are some states that have lane restrictions. But if you're in a state, if you're in Arizona and you're running the I-10 between Tucson and Phoenix, there is no state law that says you cannot get in the left lane past them. I see guys all the time breaking their necks to try to go around somebody on the right. It's like, dude, pass them on the left. There's no law that says you can't. Now, there are a lot of trucks can't do the speed limit. Don't get over there. Don't get over. No one should be riding the left lane. You should pass and get out of the way. If it's going to take you 3 days to pass another truck, yeah, don't jump out there. If your truck can only do 70 mile an hour and the speed limit 75, don't. If you can get around them quickly, if you're doing 70 and the guy's doing 65, get around, get out of the way. Go around, get out of the way. But there's no federal law that says you cannot get in the left lane in a multi-lane freeway. There are certain state laws, and some states are different than other states. I would regularly in Texas go around somebody on a multi-lane freeway in the left where they have the signs, because Texas's thing is, we don't really care so much if you get over there. Just get back out of that lane, which everybody should do, by the way. Everyone. So, those are a couple of federal law, or those are a couple of misconceptions guys have about federal laws and what you can and can't do. I also heard a lot of wild trucker tales out there, and I'll probably sprinkle some of those in. I remember when I first started driving, and I don't know if this story's still going around or not, but there used to be this story about this guy's hauling a government load, right? And they tell him, do not open the doors. They're sealed. Do not open the doors. If you open the doors, I don't know, whatever. The world's going to come to an end or something. I don't know. So the guy gets pulled, call this number. He says, see, anybody tries to open your door, call this number. So the guy pulls into a weigh station, and the scale master says, You got to open that door. And the guy says, oh, I can't open the door. It's sealed. And the guy says, I don't care. Open that door. I'm going to open it if you don't. And so the scale master pushes him aside and just breaks the seal and opens the door. The guy calls the number he's supposed to call, and all of a sudden all these black helicopters come down and descend on the weigh station, and they arrest the scale master. I've heard that story by several different people, probably a dozen or more. Most of them say it happened to them. They change the story up a little bit here and there, but I'm thinking, yeah, bro, you're a grown man, and you're going to try to feed me this line of BS? Really? Really? Come on, dude. It's obviously a tall tale, but it's one that when I first started driving 30 plus years ago, it was one that was going around. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're a new driver, you got to take a lot of this stuff with a grain of salt. Now, is there crazy things that can happen to you out here? Oh, yes. There's a lot of... I could tell you stories about stuff in Alaska, or even down here, that you would probably say, I don't know about that. And I can tell you, it's absolutely true. There are things that happen. Crazy things that happen. There are government loads out there. There are government loads that you haul that they don't want the whole world knowing about. There are companies out there who haul government currency. In fact, I know a company that hauls government currency, and their drivers are armed. And it's a major OTR trucking company. You would know them if I said the name properly. I'm not going to sit here and say the name. I mean, they do advertise. I'll just say they're based out of Denver. And they haul U.S. currency. Not all the time, but a lot of times. When I used to haul explosives, obviously we weren't armed. I was doing it through Canada. But there were certain things. We had to do a team. Because in Canada, you cannot leave the truck by itself if you're placarded with explosives. And I never really got an anal exam too bad by the cops. I did get pulled over there in Prince George, British Columbia one time. And, by their version of DOT, I forget what they call them. But, and the guy's like, oh, I never seen the explosives truck come through here before. I said, well, you don't have a bypass. So where am I? Oh, no, you're legal. I was just thought I would check it out, Okay, whatever. But there are loads out there. I remember seeing a truck. I'll give you this example. I remember seeing a truck not far out of Cheyenne, Wyoming, on I-80, and the truck went by. Actually, and I didn't realize at first there were SUVs in front of it that apparently were with him. The truck went by. 2 more SUVs were behind him, and there was a helicopter above them, and had government tags on the trailer. And it's probably a government, federal government truck. The federal government has their own. They have trucks. I've seen them. You see one a lot between Anchorage and Fairbanks when I was in Alaska. And I'm thinking, okay, this guy's hauling something that they don't want anybody getting close to him, right? So that kind of stuff does happen. But when you hear the same story from different people and they claim it happened to them, it's pretty much a tall tale. But there are some crazy stuff there are crazy things that happen to you out here. There's no doubt about that. So anyway, I'm trying to get used to the hours of service again down here, and I'm getting it. It's not too big of a deal, but it is what it is. I'm going to get unloaded here. They just sent me a load, picking something up over in Greeley, probably JBS, going to South Sioux City, Nebraska, which is probably Empirical Foods, which is a drop and hook on both ends, which is good. So I'm kind of getting back into the swing of this lower 48, you know. Got the truck with all the safety crap on it, you know, all the traffic. Man, the traffic coming into Loveland this morning, between Greeley and Loveland, the more really worked on my anxiety. I got to get back used to that. I mean, we had traffic in Anchorage and all that, but you know, once you got out of town, you know, north of Wasilla, even on the Parks Highway, it calmed down a lot. But here, you're never alone up in the lower 48. Even when you're out in the middle of nowhere, there's still traffic. So it doesn't matter. There's still traffic. That's the thing. That's the thing you have to get used to. Whereas in Alaska, once you get out of the built-up area like Anchorage, Wasilla, Palmer area, the traffic really died down considerably. Now, summertime, not as much. You got a lot of tourists, but especially in the wintertime, yeah, it died right off. Till you got to Fairbanks, and Fairbanks isn't that big. And once you got outside of Fairbanks, it died off again. Here, it never really dies off. You can run 80 across Nebraska or across Wyoming, be out in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming, and there's traffic. People traveling back and forth, trucks, cars, it just never ends. And I got to get back to being used to that again. So anyway, I'll go ahead and end this video. I appreciate you watching. I need to do a live stream, and I'm going to try to schedule that because I want to tell you ahead of time that I'm doing it. So we're going to work on that. Maybe whenever I'm on a 34 or something, and you want to ask questions about Alaska or about back in the day trucking or what I'm doing now, whatever, you know, we can do that. So I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.